ओम परतत्वे सदा लीनो रामकृष्णसमाज्ञया यो धर्मस्थापनरतो वीरेशं तं नमाम्यहम्. We have been trying to study Swami Vivekananda's Bhakti Yoga, and we have seen that the main word there is yoga, and yoga does not mean pranayama and pratyahara. Yoga does not mean also addition, though that is the normal meaning of the word yoga. Addition, that is not the meaning here. Yoga only one meaning, tat prapti upaya, a method of realizing God. And it is through love, so it is called Bhakti Yoga. And we have seen that in the beginning, Swamiji has given Shvatashvatar mantras to show that what we call Brahman, the absolute reality, which is transcendent and all-pervading, that alone is capable of ruling this world permanently. And it is about that we feel love. And he also has told that we surrender to that absolute reality which turns our mind towards God, and because we are desirous of liberation. So he has declared the aim of life is liberation or freedom, and for that the upaya is bhakti or love of God. And then entering inside the book, the first chapter being definition of bhakti, he is showing that definition of bhakti which will make bhakti into bhakti yoga, and we will realize God. And in the beginning, he takes up Narad Bhakti Sutras only, that is the, I may say, one of the or the best treatise on bhakti. And so he takes it up and shows through that this is a continuous search after the Lord, beginning, continuing and ending in love. So, and then he says that one moment of divine madness will make us free forever. And then the results of that achievement is also shown. And then he says that this cannot coexist with desires, because when there is an innermost pull, the outside mind going outside is automatically restrained. And then he comes along with Narad Bhakti Sutra and says that it is higher than karma and yoga. Here also we understood that the real bhakti or bhakti yoga is higher than karma and yoga, not any bhakti whatsoever, it cannot be higher. And then he starts comparing and contrasting or relation between bhakti and jnana. And here what we find that he says if the writer wants to emphasize jnana, he may show bhakti to be a little lesser, but they have to talk on bhakti, because without bhakti knowledge cannot come. Now, what is bhakti and what is jnana? He shows that in the Gita they are shown to be helping each other. Bhakti can itself lead you to realization, jnana can itself lead you to realization, but bhakti gives jnana and jnana gives bhakti. That is what he has shown. At this point, let us pause and try to understand what is after all bhakti and what is after all jnana and how they are related. So let us think of this topic today, basing upon Sri Ramakrishna's sentence that Shuddha Bhakti and Shuddha Jnana are one. Now the very word Shuddha Bhakti tells us that there are hundreds of Ashuddha Bhaktis. And similarly, Shuddha Jnana use shows that there are thousands of Ashuddha Jnanas. And these Ashuddha Bhaktis and Ashuddha Jnanas don't seem to be related even. But Shuddha Bhakti and Shuddha Jnana is one, then why there are two words that we have to understand. There is a constitution of the mind which is predominantly analytic. There has to be a love element in that mind, but it is too much of analysis that is filled in the mind. And on analysis, what we find that the world is unreal. That is the result of our analysis. World is temporary, so world is unreal, and there is a reality at the back. Now this, mind you, is the Jnana psychology, but it is half a house. It can be called as Ashuddha Jnana. Then, if we reach that reality, then only we have the real Jnana, that reality itself appears as this world. This is Shuddha Jnana, please. The world is unreal, there is a reality at the back, and this very reality at the back appears as the world. Now it is Shuddha Jnana. But approach is through analysis. It becomes Shuddha only when the immanence is seen. When the transcendent, if you talk of only transcendent reality, is half knowledge. But when the same transcendent reality is immanent, it appears as the world, then it is pure knowledge. Our consciousness is changed into that. Now let us say what is Bhakti and what is Shuddha Bhakti. We are not thinking of world to be real or unreal. In Bhakti, we feel there is God and we are attracted to that God. That is how Bhakti starts. And along with the attraction to God, there is attraction to thousands of things of the world. Then it is unreal. But when this love of God makes us merged in God, then we find that the world is unreal. World is lost. Our I also is lost. Everything is merged in God, and God alone remains. So in the end, what is the result? In the end, what is the difference? God Himself is the entire world. That is how we begin in Bhakti. And when we finally see that God is beyond I, beyond world, then that is real love, culmination of real love. So end point of both, if they are pure, is same. Ashuddha Bhakti is that where we are loving God, but hundreds of other loves also are in our mind. Or I am separate from God, at least is in our mind. Then it is Ashuddha Bhakti. So long as I love God, it is Ashuddha Bhakti. When this lover I is merged in God, then only it becomes Shuddha Bhakti. So, Shuddha Bhakti and Shuddha Jnana are identical, but the approaches are different. That is why they are two names. The Jnani starts with analysis, and world is unreal for him in the beginning itself, and God is real. But when it becomes fulfilled, then he says that very God is all. Then it is Shuddha Jnana. A Bhakta does not think of world real or unreal in the beginning. He feels God, he is attracted to God, and he is real. World is real in a way because God has created it. But when the love increases and reaches its culmination, then this lover I is lost in God. Simultaneously the world is lost in God. And there is nothing other than God. So that is Shuddha Bhakti. This is the relation. So, with this now, and before that, in the lower level of Bhakti, fanaticism is there. In the lower level of Jnana, intellectualism is there. So, bearing this in mind, in this small book, page 7, bearing this in mind, let us try to understand what the great Vedantic commentators have to say on the subject of Jnana and Bhakti. About Bhakti especially. In explaining the sutra, Avrutti Asakrut Upadeshat. Avrutti Asakrut Upadeshat. Avrutti means, if this idea comes, I am Brahmasmi. If the idea comes, world is not real, God alone is real. If the idea comes that God is transcendent and immanent, then we have to repeat it. In practice, we must go on repeating that in our mind. Once understanding is not enough. How do you know that? Because in the Vedanta, again and again that is taught. Asakrit means more than once. Upadeshat means taught in the Vedanta. We have to repeat because the Vedanta has taught it many times. In a single chapter in Chandogya Upanishad, Tattvamasi is told 9 times. So it means that whatever we think of God must be repeated. Now on this sutra, Shankar is commenting. In explaining the sutra, Avrutti Rasakrit Upadeshat, Bhagavan Shankara says, I am thinking that now, whether he has attached this word to the other commentators also or not, that is what I am searching. Anyway. Anyway, so remember that he is calling Shankara Bhagavan. And Bhagavan means not creator, preserver of the world. Bhagavan has another meaning, and the meaning is that real all-knower. That is called Bhagavan. Bhagavan Shankara says, thus people say, he is devoted to the king, he is devoted to the Guru. They say this of him who follows his Guru and does so, having that following as the one end in view. Please, those nannies, when they read the word Bhakti in Shankara's Viveka Chudamani, which we are going to read Wednesday, they say, there he shows Sasrupanusandhanam Bhakti Ritya Vidiyate, but see what Bhakti is meaning. What is the definition of Bhakti according to Shankara? He is devoted to the king, Raja Bhakta. He is devoted to the Guru, Guru Bhakta. Does they mean Sasrupanusandhanam? So Bhakti has a meaning of its own. They say this, he is telling, of him who follows his Guru. Anusandhana means following. He follows his Guru and does so having that following as the one end in view. That is the only thing in my life, Parama. These are the two ideas, following his Guru and following as my supreme thing in life. And does so having that following as the one end in view. Similarly, they say, the loving wife meditates on her loving husband. So, Sasrupanusandhanam. Loving wife meditates on the loving husband continuously, like the unbroken flow of oil. Here also a kind of eager and continuous remembrance is meant. Eager and continuous remembrance. This is devotion according to Shankara. Fine example Swamiji has brought. Now, he is now taking up, I think this is Ramanujana. Yes. That is what I was saying. Ramanuja also, he says Bhagavan. Anyway, now, Bhagavan means he revered, sir. Now, his next paragraph, he is giving what Bhagavan Ramanuja or Ramanujacharya is talking about Bhakti. That we have to now follow. We have seen Shankara, now Ramanuja. And Swamiji said they were all advocates of knowledge. Meditation again is a constant remembrance of the thing meditated upon, flowing like an unbroken stream of oil poured out from one vessel to another. When this kind of remembering has been attained in relation to God, all bondages break. The question is attained. That means the loving wife can meditate on loving husband. But when the same type of continuous remembrance is achieved about God, we try, and when it is achieved, when that is possible, when we are doing continuous remembrance of God, it is a big achievement in life. Then all bondages break. So bondages break when this continuous remembrance of God comes in. Thus it is spoken of in the scriptures regarding constant remembering as a means to liberation. Ramanuja's idea, constant remembering. Now this constant remembering appears to be a deliberate attempt. And when this becomes automatic, then only it can be called bhakti, please. Otherwise it's a work, it is a ritual. Constantly remembering, if it is a practice, it is not bhakti. When it is automatic, then it is bhakti. This remembering again is of the same form as seeing. This Ramanuja's dilution. Because it is of the same meaning as in the passage, when he who is far and near is seen, the bonds of the heart are broken. Paravari translation. All doubts vanish and all effects of work disappear. He who is near can be seen and who is far can only be remembered. This is total dilution. There is no far and near in God. God is in me. And I can see far also if you follow Patanjali. Physically also, there are many people who are able to see far. So why far we cannot see, only we can remember? This is a dilution, please. Nevertheless, the scripture says that we have to see him who is near as well as him who is far, thereby indicating to us that the above kind of remembering is as good as seeing. Poor interpretation. This remembrance, when exalted, assumes the same form as seeing. When exalted. What is this exaltation? When it is not a deliberate remembering, but when it is seeing, when it is a constant thing, then only it is called bhakti. As good as seeing. Worship is constant remembering, as may be seen from the essential text of the scriptures. Knowing which is the same as repeated worship has been described as constant remembering. Now all this appears, repeated worship and all that are deliberate actions, while the real knowledge means change of consciousness. And when the consciousness is changed, all these things become automatically permanent. Thus the memory which has attained to the height of what is as good as direct perception is spoken of in the Shruti as a means of liberation. Height can only come by change of consciousness, not by practice. This Atman is not to be reached through various sciences, nor by intellect, nor by much study of the Vedas. Whomsoever this Atman desires, by him is the Atman attained. That is the interpretation of the mantra of the Kathopanishad. Yame vaishav runute tena labhya. Unto him this Atman discovers himself, means reveals himself. Here after saying that mere hearing, thinking and meditating are not the means of attaining this Atman, it is said, whom this Atman desires, by him the Atman is attained. The extremely beloved is desired. By whomsoever this Atman is extremely beloved, he become the most beloved of the Atman. Oh, now he shows that if I love Atman most, then I become loved by Atman. So that this beloved may attain the Atman, the Lord himself helps. For it has been said by the Lord, those who are constantly attached to me and worship me with love, I give that direction to their will, Gita 10th Adhyaya, by which they come to me. So the grace of God and our attempt are same thing. From this side, our attempt, from that side, God's grace. Therefore it is said that to whomsoever this remembering, which is of the same form as direct perception, is very dear, because it is dear to the object of such memory perception, is desired by the Supreme Atman. By him the Supreme Atman is attained. Anyway, quite a, what I should say, complicated, involved reasoning. The constant remembering is denoted by the word bhakti. So, not only continuous but constant remembering can only happen if the consciousness is changed, not by a deliberate practice. So says Bhagavan Ramanuja in his commentary on the Sutra Athato Brahma Jigyasa, in the very first sutra of the Brahma Sutra. Swamiji, to produce this Bhakti Yoga, has struggled, has taken consultation with all Shastras available. Though he was in foreign countries, he called up from India many books, and then only he knows Bhakti. But to give it to us, he has consulted so many Shastras and is quoting from them. In commenting, now the next, in commenting on the sutras of Patanjali, Ishvara Pranidhana Dva, how Samadhi is attained, one of the method Patanjali says is by Ishvara Pranidhana. His definition of Ishvara may be peculiar. That is, or by the worship of the Supreme Lord. Bhoja says, Bhoja is a commentator on Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Bhoja Vritti. Swamiji has found out there, Pranidhana is that sort of bhakti in which without seeking results such as sense enjoyments, etc., all works are dedicated to the teacher of teachers. So in Patanjali Yoga, God is the teacher of teachers. And our works are dedicated to him without thinking of fruits or sense enjoyments. That is called pranidhan. Bhagavan Vyasa, this is not Vyasa of the Brahma Sutra. This another Vyasa has commented on the Patanjali Yoga. Bhagavan Vyasa also, when commenting on the same, defines pranidhan as the form of bhakti by which the mercy of the Supreme Lord comes into the yogi and blesses him by granting him his desires. So the word pranidhana itself is interpreted into different ways. But we are coming to the same point. Now, this is about commentators of Yoga Sutras. Now it takes up another Bhakti Sutra. According to Shandilya, Bhakti is intense love to God. Sa paranuruktir Ishvare. Now he comes to the best definition is however. When he says however, what is the meaning? All these definitions are not wrong, all these definitions are not bad, but not so comprehensive as Swamiji is going to give now. That is the meaning of best definition. Best definition does not mean that others are wrong. They are good, some are better, but this is the best definition. And this best definition is not given as a definition originally. I will tell you now that. Is however that given by the king of Bhaktas, Prahlada. King of Bhaktas means the supreme Bhakta. या प्रीतिरविवेकानां विषयेषु अनपायिनी त्वाम अनुस्मरतः सा मे हृदयान् मापसर्पतु. That deathless love, love in our heart is deathless, which the ignorant have for the fleeting objects of the senses. Objects are fleeting, love is deathless. As I keep meditating on thee, may not that love slip away from my heart. It is prayer to God. What is the context, you know? Prahlada has not given this as definition. You know the story a little? Prahlada's father was Hiranyakashipu. And Hiranyakashipu's brother Hiranyaksha was killed by God himself, because he was a nuisance to the world. So Hiranyakashipu became angry on God, you may say, became a despiser of God. But his wife was a devotee. And Narada used to come and tell her about God during her pregnancy. And from that Prahlada was born. He was a born Jnani. His father did not like that. He started tormenting Prahlada. And he appointed teachers to change his mind. But Prahlada's mind could not change. He tried to get him killed by indirect means, but Prahlada did not die. So he himself rushed to Prahlada for killing. At that point, Bhagavan appeared through a pillar and killed Hiranyakashipu. Then Bhagavan is asking Prahlada, I am very pleased, you please ask some boon. And this is what Prahlada has asked. Prahlada has this boon. He does not want material anything. What is his boon? He says, Aviveki, non-discriminating or ignorant people, put the permanent love to impermanent objects. Obviously, frustration will be the result. And we go on shifting. Many women, they love their husbands. And when the child is born, the love shifts to the child. If A does not give me pleasure, I will go to B. Because the objects are impermanent and your love is permanent. But now if this permanent love is given to permanent object, permanent reality, then it will meet its fulfillment. And that permanent, not only object but permanent reality is God only. This is Prahlada's boon. Prahlada says that the ignorant people, their permanent love they give to impermanent objects, you can add and meet frustration. If the permanent love is given to the permanent subject, reality, then it will meet its fulfillment. That you please give me as a boon. Now this has become in Swamiji's mind and for all of us the best definition of bhakti. So bhakti includes here discrimination. And this has become the best definition. As I keep meditating on thee, may not that love slip away from my being, heart. Love for whom? So Swamiji says, love for whom? That means love is there in everybody's heart, but to whom it is to be applied? For the Supreme Lord Ishvara. Love is to be applied for the Supreme Lord. That is what the Shvetasvatar described as. That Supreme Lord, called Ishvara, to him the love should be given. He is permanent. Love for any other being, however great, cannot be bhakti. For as Ramanuja says in the Sri Bhashya is the name of the commentary on the Brahma Sutras. The Ramanuja says there, quoting an ancient Acharya, that is a great teacher, A Brahma Stamba Paryanta Jagadantar Vyavasthita प्राणिना कर्मजनित संसार वशवर्तिना यतस्ततो न ते ध्याने ध्यानिनाम उपकारका अविद्यांतर्गता सर्वे तेहि संसार गोचरा. He has himself given the translation. From Brahma to a clump of grass, all things that live in the world are slaves of birth and death caused by karma. Therefore, they cannot be helpful as objects of meditation because they are all in ignorance and subject to change. So, same discrimination which Prahlada showed is being shown. Love for anybody else cannot be bhakti. Love for the Supreme Lord alone can be bhakti. Because anybody else is subject to transmigration, only Lord is beyond the transmigration. That is the reason. Now another. Shandilya Sutras, commentator on Shandilya Sutras. How much Swamiji has struggled to present this book to us, how much effort he has taken. Struggle in the sense, how much effort he has taken to make this book comprehensive and to make us understand that the all great acharyas agree, though they put in different words. In commenting on the word Anurakti used by Shandilya, what is Anurakti? Sa Paranuraktir Ishware. That Swamiji translated as love of God. Now, there are commentators who explain what is this Anurakti. The commentator Swapneshwara says that it means Anu, after, and Rakti, attachment. That is the attachment which comes after the knowledge of the nature and glory of God. So Shandilya is saying knowledge leads to bhakti. That is Anurakti. Else a blind attachment to anyone, easy to wife or children, would be bhakti. Blind because we do not analyze their impermanency or permanency. We plainly see, therefore, now Swamiji is summing up this definition of bhakti, starting with Narada. We plainly see, therefore, that bhakti is a series or succession of mental, mind you, Swamiji's definition. Bhakti is a series or succession of mental efforts at religious realization, beginning with ordinary worship and ending in a supreme intensity of love for the Ishvara. So what is bhakti? A force, not a particular state of the mind. Beginning with ordinary worship. Why I am worshipping God? Not to gain something. Why I am worshipping God? Because I love Him. And the end is nothing remains, only love remains. Now from here to there, the progress, that is bhakti. Bhakti is not a particular state of the mind. Bhakti is the succession, series or succession. That means first this, then this, then this, then this, ending in perfect love. All this is guided by the force of love. So that force which creates this succession is bhakti. Religious realization. Religious means spiritual in Swamiji's words, means adhyatma. That means not realizing an outside object, but realizing our own real nature. Up till that we are moving. From worship, I remember here an incident. One man, supposed to be a big acharya, asked me a question. When we know that God is Nirgun Nirakar, why we get stuck up in Sagun Sakar? That was his question, I remember clearly. I told him, God is Nirgun Nirakar does not mean He is not Sagun and Sakar. First thing, God is Nirgun and Nirakar is only an idea. We have not realized it. And we need not get stuck up in Sagun Sakar, but we start with Sagun Sakar. We are doing worship. Is there no love in us? We are doing worship because we love God, and that helps us to grow. That gives us a touch of experience. When we are viewing the light, mechanically doing is a different thing. But bhaktas do all these things because they love God. And from there we proceed and reach the Nirgun Nirakar. This is what Swamiji has said. The man who asked me, now I am remembering, they had an institution and they used to think this is entirely based on Swamiji's ideas on education. But they did not seem to have read this Bhakti Yoga. Swamiji is telling, starting from this, reaching there, that is Bhakti. We are not getting stuck up anywhere, but we want to reach there through this. So in this way, we come to the end of Swamiji's lesson of the Bhakti Yoga. Now what we get from this? From the Shata Shlokas as well as this chapter, Ishvara, love for Ishvara, not for any other being. So now automatically Swamiji has to take up the idea, what is Ishvara? Everybody has his own concept of Ishvara. That is a funny thing. We have just now seen Patanjali's concept of Ishvara. So, the next topic automatically is what is Ishvara. And the clearer our idea of Ishvara, we will understand, the clearer our idea of Bhakti, because Bhakti is love for Ishvara. So Swamiji takes up that in the second lesson, the philosophy of Ishvara. Philosophy means the correct idea of Ishvara. Who is Ishvara? Important thing. Ishvara is not sitting above in the clouds. A common man who feels Ishvara, I am reminded in many places, as soon as they talk of Ishvara comes, they point up, as if sitting there. All of us, those even who apparently love Ishvara, they do not know what is Ishvara. And so, the love does not become it does not get a correct direction. Now, Swamiji is referring to Brahma Sutra, which is a systematic study of all the Upanishads. So they are our final authority in everything. Our final authority in everything is the, what they call the Jnana portion of the Vedas, the Upanishads. And I told you on the first day, Mahaprabhuji said Upanishads are the best Bhakti Shastras in the world. Now these Upanishads are many, so Vyasadeva, Bhadra and Vyas thought of systematically presenting them. And that is why this first sutra comes. What is the first sutra? Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Now, therefore, the serious attempt at realizing Brahman, that is Jigyasa, deliberation and all that are not correct. He has defined Jigyasa as that desire which will not stop till we realize God. So, Brahma Jigyasa. Then automatically what comes? Then what is this Brahma? Tell us. So, next sutra says, Janmadi asya yata. That is what Swamiji is referring to. Definition of Brahman, Swamiji called definition of Ishvara. And this is reference to the Taittiriya Upanishad. Anyway, so let us see what Swamiji says now. Who is Ishvara? Srishti Sthiti Pralaya Karta. from whom the world has come, in whom the world stays, to him the world returns. That is Ishvara. Every other idea is included in that. So, the best definition given by all the Upanishads is presented by Badaran Vyas in this sutra, from whom is the birth, continuation and dissolution of the universe. This is the definition. Now who it can be? This he picks up from Shankar's Bhashya. The eternal, the pure, the ever-free, the almighty, the all-knowing, the all-merciful, this teacher of all teachers. So who can create this world? Shankar says, unless he is all-knower and all-powerful, how can he create the world? So, each word should be thought of or meditated upon. First is the eternal, permanent as Prahlad told us. He never changes. Anything which changes cannot be eternal. He is unchanging, eternal, and the pure. What is purity in God? Adulteration is impurity. If in ghee you mix oil, then it is impure. Now God is one without a second. So there is no chance of impurity. So he is pure. The ever-free, Nitya Mukta. He cannot be bound by anything. He has no attachment, he has no ego. The Almighty, Sarva Shaktiman. Now Sarva Shaktiman does not mean more powerful, like Hiranyaksha or Hiranyakashipu or Ravana. We must understand, Sarva Shaktiman means my power, your power are his powers, not my power or your power. He has given different powers, different capacities of work to us. You may say on loan or just for use. If you do not use properly, he can withdraw. If he use properly, he can add also to that. But powers always will be his only. That is called all-powerful. And then all-knowing. These three things taken together, please see, I will tell you now. The all-merciful. Whenever we think of Ishvara, these three things should immediately come to our mind. Sarvajna, Sarvashaktiman, Parama Karunik. Now, we pray to Ishvara. Ishvara, give me this, give me that. And suppose he does not give us that. Then we say, I will tell you a story, then you will understand this. I was in Mumbai. One young man, boy, he was very brilliant, always used to get top marks. And he was studying LLM perhaps. In one paper, he could not do well. He spoiled it, as we say. And he believed in God from his childhood. So he prayed to God, though I have not done well, please make me pass. And he did not pass. He failed. Then he lost his belief in God and started telling all his friends, God is not there, or if he is there, he is not all-powerful. If I do well in the exam and he makes me pass, that what is credit to him? But I have not done well and he is not able to make me pass, so he is not all-powerful. Now some of his friends brought him to me in Mumbai Ashrama and he stated this position. I said, my friend, if without your proper doing he would have made you pass, you would have been all-powerful, not God. He has done your bidding. Very important thing I am telling. God can do whatever He wills. God will not do what we will. If He starts listening to all people, then where will He go? I will tell you another funny story in this. Those who are aware of football in Calcutta, there are two rival clubs, Mohun Bagan and East Bengal. And they had the final match. Now, devotees or followers of those two clubs, they are going to Dakshineshwar Mother Kali. No, not Dakshineshwar, Kalighat Mother Kali. Dakshineshwar may not be there. And they are praying, "Oh Mother Kali, please see that Mohun Bagan passes." Another man comes, "Oh Mother Kali, please see that East Bengal wins." Another fellow comes, "Mother, please see, Mohun Bagan wins." Like that is going on. Now the Bhaktas say, that is why Mother Kali has become a stone. Whom she will listen to? Whether the Mohun Bagan people or East Bengal people. This is a very important lesson for the Bhaktas. Now the why of it. Now the question is why of it. Do we know what is beneficial for us? That is the main point. Suppose God does what we want. Will that be beneficial for us? Do we understand ever what is beneficial for us? God only understands. So He has not done what we wanted does not mean He is not karunik. He is compassionate by nature. He knows what is good for me or not. Sarvajna. He is Sarvashaktiman. He will do, He can do whatever He wills. Combine these three ideas. Example of the great people. Sri Ramakrishna's disciple, who was called Ramakrishnananda, Shashi Maharaj, was in Madras. And such days were there that he had nothing to eat. So some admirer told him, "Maharaj, it seems that God is not kind to us." He said, "Don't talk like that, don't talk like that. God is kind by nature." But there are two types of kindness. Shashi Maharaj's immortal words. There is a pleasant kindness and there is an unpleasant kindness. So pleasing us is not God's business. Real benefit for us is God's benefit. We are passing through now unpleasant kindness. Then pleasant kindness also will come. This is what, now you combine these three ideas. I will tell you my own funny story. Funny. I was the warden for students in Nagpur Ashrama. The kitchen was common, sadhus and students. And the kitchen manager was Andhar Swami. Now there was constant or daily quarrel between the boys and the cooks. Now the cook went on leave for 1 month. I prayed to God, please change our cook, because this trouble will not stop at all. And it did not come after 1 month. So I thought God has listened to me. But after another week he came. But he came as a changed person. There was no quarrel after that. I prayed to God to change the cook. He changed him and brought him. Not the way I wanted. So, combine these three ideas. Whenever we think of God, we should combine these three ideas. Minimum. Sarvajna, Sarvashaktiman, Parama-Karunik. That is what God is. And Swamiji is telling about God who has created this world. Srushti, Sthiti, Pralaya Karta, he defines. But then to describing, he is adding these words. These are all from Shankar Bhashya, please. So, we are not taking up the second lesson today. Huh? These are things to be meditated upon. God has created the world. God sustains the world. God follows the world. This is important idea, peculiar to MSA Hinduism. In other religions, Semitic religions, God creates and preserves and devil destroys. So some devil is more powerful than God. But in Hinduism, God creates, preserves and destroys. Because the world is unreal, because the world is God's play, so he has no sorrow in dissolving the world. Where does he does not destroy it. Where does it go? He swallows it, you may say. He brings out from himself, he sustains it for some time and swallows it. Again he will bring out, again he will swallow. And so we understand God alone is real, not the world. And then when we know this, then alone the world is sustained. If only everything goes on doing something, the world will get destroyed quickly. So, Swamiji defines God as creator, preserver and destroyer of this universe according to Upanishads. And then to describe him further, he has used several words. Eternal, the pure, the ever-free, the almighty, the all-knowing, the all-merciful, the teacher of all teachers. Teacher of all teachers is an idea from Patanjali Sutra, though Shankar also might have used it. So, Purveshamapi Guru Kalena Anavachyetat. And we know Sri Ramakrishna is called Acharyana Mahacharya, but the main point is that these three should be together. Sarvajna, Sarvashaktiman, Parama-Karunik. Then our thinking of Ishvara is correct, otherwise not. We cannot impose our will on God. God is self-willed. God is self-willed. If we impose our will on God, I told that boy, then you will be all-powerful. So this is the lesson for the day. We have seen the definition of bhakti, it is love for God, but what is our concept of God? He is all-powerful. Not more powerful than you and me. All-powerful in the sense, my power, your power are his powers. All-knowing. Sometimes I used to say, something happens which I had not foreseen. I used to say, God knows better than me. But after that I became wiser, if at all. And I started saying, what do I know? God only knows. God knows better than me. That means I also know something. But when I really know something, I say that I do not know, God alone knows. So these are things of meditation. We think so many things, I know this and I know that. But God knows everything. And my power, your power, God is all powerful. And He is Parama-Karunik. He is the ocean of mercy, as they say. He knows what is beneficial for each individual in this world. And he works out his will accordingly. So, we stop here today. This Swamiji's Bhakti Yoga is really, it will clear every doubt, every wrong idea in our mind about Bhakti, about God. Om Paratatve Sada Lino Ramakrishna Samagya Yo Dharma Sthapana Rato Viresham Tam Namamyaham. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
प्रणाम महाराज।